Welcome back to another edition of Official Word Sports. I'm Vince, here with my co-host Stevie D. Stevie D, we just completed Super Wildcard Weekend, and
Wait a minute. How can Monday be part of the weekend? Can somebody explain that to me?
we got to talk to Roger. We got to talk to Roger about that one. But it was crazy. It was, when they say wild card, it was truly wild, whether it be the Jacksonville Jaguars, whether it be Brett Maher and just whether it be TB12, what was going on with TB12, and of course, my Buffalo Bills, right? That was a very, let's say, stressing type game to watch, especially coming off the heels of the Saturday games. And don't be fooled by the Vegas odds makers and the talking heads that are out there, right? And we'll get into that a little bit. But one thing that where I want to go now is that Stevie D, we went into the archive, right? Had to dial the safe and go into the archive, pull out a member of the Buffalo Bills from their last, and I call it an exhibition game, and I'm going to let him know why I call it an exhibition game. But it's Russell Copeland, receiver for the Buffalo Bills. Had a career with Buffalo and certainly, did some things on the field and was a contributor to those Buffalo Bill teams. So let's just, without further ado, let's bring him on, Russell Copeland. Russell, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just as I was opening up, not sure if you heard, I was just talking about, you were a member of what I call the team that went to the exhibition game, right? And I refuse to call it because we would be fined by the league if we use the term, I'll say it once, Super Bowl, right? If you say Super Bowl, then you can be fined. So without using that, I call it an exhibition game. And here's why I call it an exhibition game. Because the AFC Championship, we won 4 times in a row. All right. So first of all, that matters. Second of all, when you get to the exhibition game, there's parties, there's media requests, there's different interviews, there's different signings, there's all this hoopla that goes into that. You don't get that for the AFC Championship. You get a little bit, right? A little bit more media attention comes, but not to the extent of the other one where really, what really matters is that AFC Championship. If we didn't have that extra game, that's an exhibition, you would still know that you're the kings of the AFC. And you guys were the kings of the AFC for 4 consecutive years, right? In total for the franchise 6 times, right? So, yeah, I congratulate you guys, and I refuse to call it that other name. I call it an exhibition. So you guys did what you had to do. He doesn't understand where I'm going with that. Hopefully you do.
Well, when you're playing, on the biggest stage, it definitely does matter. But I think something that cannot be repeated when you have went to that game, the big game, for 4 straight years, and you have won the AFC for 4 straight years, that's really saying something. Because when you look at, who's on top now, when you look at who's the top quarterback now, you look at Patrick Mahomes, right? And he's done it twice, okay? He's been to the Super Bowl twice. And you look at now, this weekend, the Bills are playing against the Cincinnati Bengals, and they are the defending AFC champions. But it's really hard to do what the Buffalo Bills did in the 90s.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let me ask you, and we kind of talked about some things we're going to talk with you about today, but a little out of order. By that team going to 4 straight, I know from my perspective, I was just getting into media back then, right? So you could hear some certain things, talk to you guys, in interviews, locker room, what have you, but also talk with the fans. And then you started to get the outside voices. Did you guys hear those outside voices that were kind of like, we don't want you guys there again, right? It seemed like after the second or third one, we almost turned from the darlings of the NFL, right, to where we were the hated team from the NFL. Did you feel that?
I think you look at it from 50-50. I think there were 50, when I say 50-50, there were some that say, hey, I'm cheering for this Buffalo Bills team to win a Super Bowl. And then, as I say, you may have had your naysayers, your haters to say, hey, they've won a couple of times, they didn't win. Let's get someone else to represent the AFC. And for me is, if that's what you feel and that's what you want, then you need to take the crown from the Buffalo Bills, and you were not able
That's
to do
right.
that. So if the Buffalo Bills did not get it done in the Super Bowl, you definitely could not have gotten it done because the Bills dominated in the 90s.
There you go. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm looking
I am going to reserve the right, because this is about the Buffalo Bills today. And as a Jet guy, I am not going to rain on any parade, any which way. So I'm not even going to make the comment because you set me up for it. But I'm going to take the high road today, Vince. I'm going to take the high road because we got our man Russell on the show, and so I'm just going to take the high road to that.
No, I'll that's a mic drop right there. So Russell, let's talk about your Bills career. You were drafted, as we mentioned, in '93 from Memphis, and coming from Memphis, it was not, at least nationwide, was not revered as one of these top schools, right? But you produce some heavy talent, and we'll start with yourself. What was the transition, though, going from Memphis coming to Buffalo in the NFL? What was that like for you?
Well, from a personal standpoint, I think the hardest thing to adjust was the weather, the snow and the ice, to adjust that, coming and going from practice. But really coming from Memphis, I think for me, I had really some really good coaches, and I could run routes. I understood coverages. I understood leverages. I really did have a good quarterback my junior year, the year that I came out. Actually, he was supposed to be drafted in the first 2 rounds, but he ended up breaking his leg in a couple of places his senior year. His name was Steve Matthews. So we had a guy by the name of Randy Fickner. He was the offensive coordinator for a lot of years for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was young then. His dad had coached at Purdue, so he really understood offenses. But we didn't throw the football a lot, even though we ended up having myself, Isaac Bruce, and another receiver, Matt Cody, that played. I think the speed of the game is what I had to adjust mostly with, being able to learn in the disguises of coverages, how the cornerbacks really, they could turn on a dime. Even though you had them beat, they could turn on a dime. So something that's wide open, like 5 or 10 yards, that's in college, in the National Football League, is just a couple of feet. So it's really a game of inches, running reverses, how fast the defensive line were, how fast the linebackers were. And also from a quarterback standpoint, is that you had to get to a certain spot. And I was fortunate enough to play with a Hall of Fame quarterback, and a quarterback that had went to the big game for 3 straight years. So he would throw to a spot and you have to get there. So the speed of the game, I think, was the biggest thing for me to adjust to.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Do you find yourself critiquing players? Hold on a second, Stevie D. Do you find yourself critiquing and kind of coaching the players as you watch the game from afar?
Well, absolutely. I think for me, I really appreciated the game and appreciated the team that I played with all the future Hall of Famers. Appreciated Marv Levy, appreciated working with Thurman Thomas, Jim Kelly, Andre Reed, and then going against some of the great defenders. And after my time away from the game, I know the game, I understand the game. And now that's what I can do when I work with other players. But just watching it on television, it's just easy for me to look at it because it's almost like film study. I can say, hey, man, you didn't take your route up. Hey, you went too flat on this route. Hey, you should have taken it to the back pylon. Or, hey, you should have came back to the ball on that curl route. Things of that nature. Then sometimes when I'm looking at the commentators talk about the game and they put it on the quarterback, a lot of times it's really not that, or vice versa. It's that the quarterback is throwing to a spot and the wide receiver may have slipped. He may have gotten held and he didn't get to that spot. Sometimes you can say, where was he throwing the football to? Because he's dropping, he's trying to look away the safeties and he's throwing to a particular spot and he believes that the wide receiver is going to be there. So that's kind of how I look at the game. And that's why when you have a wide receiver tandem that has worked very well together, they can really do it, and they do it effortless. And that's what you need. And that's what I see with Diggs, and that's what I see in Josh Allen. I see that with this receiving core. I can tell that he works with them because they're most of the times they're in the place where they need to be, and they make the tough catches.
Great. That's great insight there. Because a lot of people don't the game within the game, right? And as a former player, you understand that. I want to go back just a hair when you talked about when you came in the league and in the route running and the speed of the game. When you took the field in those first practices, did you feel overwhelmed in those first OTAs, if you will, and you got Jim Kelly and whoever, maybe I don't even know who the backup was at that point in '93, if
Right.
Frank was still there or not. Was he still there in '93? I wasn't sure if he moved on, but were you intimidated in going up and running your routes as a rookie? Because all of a sudden you look across and there's Andre Reed, right? And so maybe don't even look at it that way. But so it's a two-part question: was the speed of the game? How long did it take you to adjust to the speed of the game? And at what point, if it did happen in your rookie year, I'm not sure where it happened in your career, where you felt comfortable, well, you know what? I understand the speed of the game and it's slowing down for me. And like the light bulb is clicking now in the NFL.
Well, for the first question, I wasn't overwhelmed to the standpoint of I was starstruck. I wanted to go out and play. I wanted to compete. I came in with a chip on my shoulder because I was really supposed to have went or projected to go high in the second round or late in the second round. So once I slipped to the fourth round, I felt like I knew I had to make the team. Nothing was guaranteed. But as far as looking at Andre Reed, how smooth he was running routes, I like that. I wanted to get everything from him. When I saw how fast Don Beebe was, I wanted to see how he was coming in and out of his breaks. And I think as far as the speed of the game, it takes you to get into game time. Yes, I went against players like Nate Odoms in practice. But the speed of the game is not only from the defensive standpoint, but where does Jim Kelly want me to be at? And that was something that I had to really adjust to, and for him to be able to trust me. So I think it took me probably into my second year, third year, to really, really know that, hey, I understand the game. I know what's happening to me. I know what he's expecting if the defensive back does that. If I need to shorten my route, he understands that. If it's a back shoulder fade, so to speak, I know where he wants me to be. So probably my third year is when I was really, really comfortable.
Because your third year is where it actually started all clicking. If I remember correctly, I think you had around 42 catches. I believe that was your third year in the league.
Yes, and and also the playbook. To really adjust with the playbook, because I think if you talk about overwhelming, it wasn't from a player standpoint to be overwhelmed by other players. It was more like the playbook, man. The playbook was like a phone book, and I had the luxury of my receiver coach was a Hall of Famer, Charlie Joyner, and we would meet in the mornings like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to just go over things. And he said, "Look, I'm gonna tell you what Jim. Jim may go back to some things that we haven't done, because you have to take mine. He's been playing with Andre Reed now for several years. He's been to 3 straight Super Bowls, and he would tell me, if you're outside and you get caught up on an audible and you don't know what to do, he said, just run a go route." And believe it or not, I caught some go routes just running clear out routes. But the playbook is something that you really have to get into. You really have to learn, especially for me, because we ran a K-gun offense, and the K-gun offense is an offense that's not really huddling. You're standing outside, so you're doing hand signals, or you're doing words, and you have to know what to go, and you're doing it on the fly. So if you don't really know the offense, you're not going to be able to play.
You mentioned something talking about, just even in practice, and, you definitely benefited, and you mentioned Nate's name, right? Great defensive back that we had before he left. I think he went to Seattle, but you also had Thomas Smith that you would go up and battle against, J.D. Williams. We had a really stout defense and a really good secondary that definitely, I would assume, that helped you prepare for, week after week. Sometimes that level of competition was not the same that you would have in that week leading up to it.
Hey, it definitely helped me when it was time for me to play. My rookie year, I was put into some spots, and I think I caught maybe 20 passes or something, a little bit more than that. But you take mine that you have Hall of Fame future Hall of Fame receivers that's playing. So to be able to come in and step in as a rookie and for Jim Kelly to trust you was big. But you're talking about the defensive backs that I went against, man. Every day one-on-one was really big, and it was huge.
Yeah.
And Thomas Smith, man, he's a good friend of mine. He was the first round pick then. So every day, man, I would go up against him and say, man, I should have been the first round pick. You know, that's what I'm saying to myself. You know what I mean? So we would have a lot of battles, and just looking at Andre and Don Beebe go up against the two starting corners. You're talking about JD Williams. You're talking about somebody that could flat fly. You know, he ran like 4.2. He could run. He was really good. He was long. And Nate Otis was just smooth, man. He understood the game. He could read the quarterback. He could read the drops. And it was just unfortunate for him that he had the knee injury. I think he had left and went to Seattle. But he was really, really good. And he played so many games, and I would watch films and I would look at it. And it helped prepare me when it was really time for me to play. When I say my third year, my second year I played a lot. But when I became a starter, you know, playing against those guys right there helped me to be ready to go against the Troy Vincents at Philadelphia. Actually, he was at Miami then. Some of the better cornerbacks, it helped me to be prepared for those.
Yeah, I think that secondary was very underrated, right? I think if you were around them, obviously you practice against those guys, right? You travel, you play with them, so you knew, right? And I think being in Buffalo and seeing that team, we knew.
We knew it. We knew it down with the Jets because we couldn't beat you guys. So we knew all about you guys.
You heard, you would always hear about Smith and Bennett and Talley, right? The big names, right? Then it would kind of filter down into more of our front seven. Henry Jones had that big year, right? And people talked about him when he had all those interceptions. But that secondary, that was a great secondary, right? And I could just only imagine the battles that you guys had, whether it be training camp or regular in practice. But, you know, I'm glad you brought that in, you know, just to kind of shed some light on that. When we talk about the secondary, and I want to go into the topic here, Russell, and talking about Damar Hamlin, right? It was almost undescribable, right? Mm-hmm. As everything unfolded. And Steve and I on the podcast, we struggled. We struggled just from a humanitarian part, right? We struggled. One of the things that you know, I said like immediately, and Steve was right there with me. We were not going to try to capitalize in social media by reposting or doing anything like that with Damar's name there to it, right? It didn't feel right, right? And I almost, you know, I just anger when I see people that were putting things up just so they could get the clicks and the like, right? Here's a man that was giving it all, and you know, you're looking at it, and as you watch the players' faces, I think that told the story. Right, not listening, just watching the faces, and you know, it was gripping. For you as a former player, right, having played between those lines, and you know, right, I played ball, but not to the level that you did. You know that every time that you strap it up, you go between the lines, something could happen, right? And 99.9% of the time, we've been fortunate, right, where we've been able to make it through, go home, see the family, you know, do what you have to do. Here's a situation where that didn't happen, and we didn't know what was going to happen. As a former player, what was your emotion? What was going through your mind with that?
Guys, to be honest, it was really bizarre. It was a bizarre turn of events for me, and you just touched on it. You know, looking at it at the game from home, and I see the tackle, and I see him jump up, and then I see him collapse. And so right then, seriously, I jumped up and I said, something is wrong, because I didn't think it was paralysis because he had jumped up. And I said, I think something has cut his air supply off. That's what I had said. And then immediately there, you know, as a player, you know, you see players get hurt, you see players limp off, and you see players lay down, and you see the training staff come on the field. But the urgency of the training staff, how they came, and then I saw all the team of doctors come, I said, man, something is really not right. And then I started seeing the players' faces, and I started seeing players cry. And when I saw the players begin to cry, I knew that it was something that we had never witnessed before in a game. And take mine, we've seen Joe Theismann, we've seen Alex Smith. Even when the Jets played, back in the early 80s, we saw, I think it was Bird, we saw him not get off. And usually you always see the thumbs up, or even when they are taking off and they may not give you the thumbs up, you're still able to go back and play. You're worried about your teammate, but this right here was something different. And just to talk about all of it, I think, for me, I believe in unity. I believe in peace. I believe in harmony. It doesn't matter the gender. It doesn't matter the sexual orientation, whether your economic status or your sexual orientation. For me, everyone came together. It didn't matter what ball club that you're cheering for. It didn't matter who was cheering for who in this stadium. And throughout the country, it was humanity, and everyone was able to come together for the cause of him. And you had the candle lights, and it just means a lot to me that we all can come together. Unfortunately, it was for this, but to see how everyone worked together as a team, and I have to go backwards a little bit because let me just thank the medical staff, the training staff that was there. And I don't know if anyone really knows about this, but they are trained on that each and every week. There's a doctor that's assigned that's going to be the head doctor if something of this magnitude happens. And he takes the lead and everyone else knows what they're supposed to do. That's what's happened. And for them to move as quickly as they didn't miss a beat. And going back to, you talk about me as a former player, and just looking at the players and looking down on the field and see CPR being administered to your teammate, to a player who's just an hour ago was getting up probably for the biggest game of his life. Now he's faced with not being able to get up at all. And for him to go through that, and for the team to go through those emotions, and to see him talking and up in the middle of the week. And what stands out for me about him is that the first question that he asked was, did we win the football game? Now, That says a lot, man. That says a lot about something, man. You died. You literally died twice. And for him to come back and think about his team and his teammates, it's not any question to me why they love him. It shows a lot about the man that he is, because the charities that he's been a part of before all of this happened. And I'm just glad to see that he's up and he's back. But just one thing, for everyone to come together in the nation, not just sports channels, but everyone to come together. We can do this. And I spoke about what I believe in. I believe in the peace and harmony. I believe in everyone can get along and get together. And you see it in sports a lot of times. Sports is kind of relative to the military. The military is a little bit higher because it's life and death. But it's kind of very similar, because it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what city you're from. It doesn't matter what kind of family you come from. You all work together for a common goal, because I got your back and you have my back. And that's what we were able to see throughout the country. Everyone came together for one cause.
Yeah, no, for sure. Spot on. You answered probably one of my questions, but also the great statement, because, just to follow that, the inspiration, right? When you look at the city of Buffalo over the last 12 months, the city of Buffalo has gone through a lot, right? And I know other cities have had, some things that have gone on, but when you look at the city of Buffalo, you had the mass shooting that took place. You had 2 severe snowstorms that actually took the lives of people, right? And then there's been some other tragedies. You have Kim Pagula, who's going through her health issues herself. There's just a lot, right? And then when this happened with Damar, to your point, it just continued to galvanize everybody. And I hear some people, and you mentioned the word haters. I hear some people that are the haters, right? But when you talk about Buffalo, there's a reason why people are rooting for the Bills, right? And rooting for the city of Buffalo as we go through this playoff push, just because of, trying to embrace all that is there. Again, Stevie D and myself, we talked about the Damar situation after, and even today in our show prep, you didn't know what was going to happen for those first 24, 48 hours. And as you said, once the doctor started to report, hey, there's some activity that's going on. This is all positive, right? And we're getting these updates. And I got to be honest with you, Russell. I'm not a social media guy, right? I'm not a Twitter. I'm not a Facebook guy. I'm not an Instagram guy, right? I think I call it the gram. Am I doing that right, Stevie D? I call it. But I was locked in on my phone nonstop waiting for an update, right? The news channels and the sports news channels, they were late in providing the information. In Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, you're getting everything. And I'm hanging on every single post, right, waiting for that positive news. And to your point, when he finally was able to write down, did we win? I mean, that was a weight lifted off of my shoulder, right? Yeah, you could exhale, right? And it felt so good. And now to see, his progress, right? It's to the point now where I'm curious. Yeah, the first game, everybody came out with the flags and everybody's, holding up the 3 and all of that. Do you think, is it possible as a player that his progress and just his state of mind, his well-being, right, his Instagram post, his Facebook Live to the team, that's motivation for the team as well?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about all of the tragedies that have happened in Buffalo, and this right here just was the top of it, and it just made it to a point for me that I think this is a football team that's destined. I really honestly believe that, and when you talk about motivation, yes, it's motivation, because the first game that they played, you had a kickoff return to start the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I played special teams, and I returned kicks, and I returned punts. And everyone always says, hey, man, let's take the first kick back. Everyone always says that. But the theme for this was perfect. It was like something out of a movie. You couldn't have drawn up a better script than that. You have everyone together. Everyone, like as you say, they've galvanized. They've come together. And you return a kick, the opening kick, back for a touchdown, and then you do it again in the second half. So to answer your question, yes, I think the team has momentum. I think the team is going to look against Cincinnati this week, and it's going to bring back a lot of memories. It's going to bring back a lot. But I'm going to take it on the positive side to say, hey, he's living. He's good. He's okay. He's back with us. And now let's go ahead and finish what we started when we was in Cincinnati. But guess what? Now it's at our place. And you know something that would be great, guys? If he's healthy enough to have him at the game, if he's healthy enough that he can do the cheer, and he can lead that cheer, that right there would be so monumental. It would be so energetic. And I just think that this Bills football team is a team of destiny, and the city, upstate New York, Buffalo, Orchard Park, Hamburg, all of the surrounding areas, they are hungry for a Super Bowl winner. And this is the closest team since the team that I was a part of in the 90s that has an opportunity to do that. I think they have the right nucleus. I think they have the right leader at quarterback. Diggs is an emotional leader, and you have some on defense as well. I just think this team is a team of destiny.
Yeah, no, I like that. So let me ask you this question. Going back, right? I know we're going back and forth, but going back, you look at your game when you were on those teams, and now when you look at this team, who do you think most closely resembles your game?
I would say Gabe.
Okay.
Gabe Davis. He's a big receiver. He makes the tough.
What you're saying is you got that toe tap swag. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, absolutely, man, absolutely. But yeah, man, he's big. He makes those contested catches, and really, he's playing in the shadows of a superstar, all-pro wide receiver. Much like a lot of number 2 receivers do. But I really like his game, man, and hopefully he can get involved this weekend, because when you playing against the Cincinnati Bengals, being able to spread that football around offensively for the Bills would be big. And I think the number 2 wide receiver, and also when you look at tight ends, but for him, I think he's going to have a big game.
Okay. All right. No, fair enough. So
it's right, big game Gabe, right? It's not his name. He shows up in the big time. So
well, after that Kansas City game, it stuck, right? 8 for 200 and 4 touchdowns. So, Russell, what's life for you after football?
Well, after leaving football, I just took some time off, and my kids, to be in my kids' life. They were doing some sports and do some things with them and spend time with my wife. But since then, I'm broadcasting. I'm actually an analyst for the Tiger Sports radio network at Learfield. I do a lot of training, some speed and agility. I work with the speed part of it. I work with the conditioning part of it. I work with the agility part of it. Also work with some wide receivers, being able to get them in bump and run situations, to work with them coming back to the football, work with them on their footwork, let them do a little bit of film study. We look at some things and let them be able to tell me, what are you going to run on this route? If they play bump and run, if you got a post corner, how are you going to run it? How are you going to run a speed out if they play bump and run with you? If the defensive back takes one side and you have a comeback, how are you going to be able to come back to the ball inside or outside? Going across the middle, show them how to run a dig route from different angles, come all the way across. If it's man to man, if it's zone, you sit down in the hole, you come back to it. You may even whip it out. Just going through 1 through 9 with them, and then also talking with them off the field, off the playing surface, about life in general, about things that goes on, because we are living in a society today that a lot of things are happening, and peer pressure is always going to be a part of it. So that's what I'm doing. And I also own my own lawn service and landscaping business as well. So those are things that I'm doing. And we talked about the YouTube earlier. I'm trying to, get that started as well, off the ground as well.
So with that lawn service, do you do anything in Florida? Because I'm ready to sign up.
Hey, I got you, man. I tell you what, we'll go out for a little bit, man. But I tell you what, I would love to hang out, man, and have some dinner. My wife loves Florida. So my youngest daughter, she's 12. She loves to go to Florida. So hopefully we can definitely be hooking up when it gets a little bit warm.
All right. Definitely. So, Russell.
I got to cut in here. I got to cut in. I got to get it in before I forget, because I'm getting old and my memory's not so good. So I got a couple of quick questions for you. It's almost like a rapid fire thing, right? Who is your favorite teammate of all time?
Oh, you can't ask that.
Yeah, everybody's got to have a favorite teammate that they played with.
Somebody's gonna be left out.
Well, I loved all of them, but for me, Eric Mose, for me.
See? Thank you, Russell. Who is your favorite coach of all time? It could be at any level.
No, it's Marv Levy.
Okay. What's the one DB, the DB that you hated lining up against? Not in practice, in the game.
It would probably be Troy Vincent for the Miami Dolphins.
What player do you hate in the NFL?
You can't ask that question.
Yes, I can.
Well,
yes, I can.
I don't hate any player because
the one player you just.
I really don't hate any players, and here's why. Because I belong to an elite fraternity, and all of us are brothers, no matter what team that you play for. So I love all my players, but what I will say is that the fan base that gets under my nerves is the Dallas Cowboys fan base. So I would use that. But players, I love all of my players, man. When I look at a football game, man, I'm neutral, so to speak. I want Buffalo to win, but I also like what Jamar Chase does. I love the catches. Just don't beat the Buffalo Bills. But I love how he runs routes. I love Joe Burrow. I love all the players in the league, man. And it's just great to how the game is evolving, the young quarterbacks. I'm a fan of the game. I was a fan of the game in the 70s when I was growing up, watching the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, watching Lynn Swann and those guys. So I'm always be a fan of the game. But no, I don't hate any players, but the Dallas Cowboys fan base kind of gets under my skin a little bit.
Okay, so I'm going to keep that theme with the Dallas Cowboys here for a second, because you played them in the exhibition game.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What was it like to take the field in an exhibition game? Can I briefly call it a Super Bowl?
Call it the big game. He
Okay,
referenced
big
it
game.
as the big game.
What was that like in your preparation, maybe the day before, the day of, and then all of a sudden knowing that this is the game most likely as a young man, a child, whenever you started playing, Pop Warner football, like I'm going to play in a Super Bowl, right? I'm sure we all in the backyard say I'm going to play in a Super Bowl. Now all of a sudden you get there. What was that feeling like of going out in the field with everything that was going on? What was like your emotions like, taking the field?
It was really unreal. And if you can bear with me to just lead up into it, I think the preparation on the field was the same, but everything that you had to go through as far as the media, speaking with the media, you having media day, you had a lot of things that was different leading up to the week, different than what it is playing at a home game or playing in an away game. But taking the field, and for me, I got the opening kickoff return and just seeing all the light bulbs and just being able to look and see. You may look over there on this row and there's a star here, there's a star there. And just me saying to myself is that, hey man, you're here, man, you're in the big game, man, try to take this to the house. But it was unreal for me because like you mentioned before, as a kid growing up, and once I started playing sports, my dream was to play in the National Football League. And ultimately, it would be great to play in the Super Bowl. You go outside and you play at halftime, and you throw passes outside, or you mess around before the game comes on, and you want to be a certain player. And now to finally be in that big game, it was really big for me. Honestly, it seemed unreal to be in that game. But once I caught the kick and got the first lick, believe it or not, it's just like any other game. But leading up to it and just seeing everything that comes along with it was great. But for me, I had the luxury of having teammates that had been to 3 straight Super Bowls. So they were able to set the tone. They were able to set the stage during the week of what you should do, what you should not do. And I think that means a lot because sometimes other teams do not have that. And a lot of times I think they get distracted, so to speak, before the week's over, or even get distracted right before the game. So I had the luxury of playing with some great teammates.
Wow, great answer. My last one. As a young man, a kid growing up, when you had asked who was your favorite player in the NFL, and you said, "Man, I want to be like him in the NFL."
It was Lynn Swann.
Who?
It was Lynn Swann.
Lynn Swann.
I emulated Lynn Swann. I would throw the football over the house. I would throw the football to myself, dive in some leads or whatever. But I thought Lynn Swann was like the best player, man. How he made catches and back in those days, you only had a couple of channels. So the Pittsburgh Steelers would always be on the channel, or either the Dallas Cowboys. And it seems like every time I would be looking at the game with my grandfather, Lynn Swann would be making one of those acrobatic catches. So I wanted to be like Lynn Swann growing up. And as I got older, I wanted to be like Jerry Rice. So it's 2 receivers. And as I got old enough, Lynn Swann wasn't playing anymore. And I looked at Jerry Rice and I just thought that he was like a ballet dancer, how smooth he was, how he caught the football, man, how he handled his business on the field and off the field. And it didn't really matter what defensive back he was going against. You knew that Jerry Rice was going to, give his best, and he was going to go out and be on top, whether it was Deion Sanders or whoever it may be. So those 2 players is who I want to be like.
Awesome.
I really was hoping that you'd say Jerry Butler or Frank Lewis. That's what I was waiting to hear, but I didn't hear that. But that's all right. Swanee was good. I have to give it up to my Bills.
Hey, Jerry was good, man. A lot of people don't know, man. Jerry was the man, man. Jerry had some gloves, man. Jerry, he's in the books there at Buffalo, man. People forget about Jerry. Jerry was a great guy too. He was a personnel guy, player personnel guy, and if you had anything that you needed to talk to, he did a great job of coming around, speaking to everyone. He'll sit you down, man. Everything going good, man? How you like the city, man? Is there any pressures on you, from the team? How you adjusting? He did a tremendous job. I love Jerry.
Good. All right, one last wrap, and then we'll wrap it up with some things for you. When you have your wings, do you have it with blue cheese now?
I do.
Thank you. That there's a lot of people out there that have this misnomer that you're supposed to use ranch. Absolutely not.
I use blue cheese, and it's so funny because my kids, they try to use ranch. They said, "Dad, why you use blue cheese?" I said, "Man, look, I played for where the wings are from, Buffalo, man." I said, "You got to have blue cheese, man. Blue cheese with your wings."
So Russell, you mentioned your YouTube channel, and there's something that's near and dear to your heart. I kind of want to open mic for you, let you talk about some things out there, and hopefully some of our listeners, subscribers, visitors to not only our YouTube channel but Facebook will take heed and kind of give you a shout out or watch to your YouTube channel. And so the floor is yours.
Well, I'm starting up the YouTube channel. It's Russell Copeland at 4350, and I'm going to be discussing different topics as far as breaking down some games, as far as some of the hot topics that may be going on. This past week, I was talking about Lamar Jackson and his contract, trying to give you the ins and outs from a player perspective of some things that you may not see, breaking down some games in terms of coverages, in terms of mismatches, and who is the favorite and why this team is favorite, why the matchups are good. And then once the season is over with, I'll be talking about the draft. I'll be talking about maybe some trades that may take place. So just please tune in for me. Hit that subscribe button and hit the like button. But it's something that I'm starting, and hopefully, man, it'll get big. But because I do have some insight and been fortunate enough to play in the National Football League, for 6 years. So it'll be fun. It'll be interesting.
And again, that channel is Russell Copeland 4350.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, perfect. Definitely we're gonna have to get back together when it is draft time, because I do have to put it out there, right? You're looking at the two guys that called the draft picks for the Jets as well as for the Bills. This gentleman over there said Sauce Gardner, and it was all over Sauce, and I was all over Kaiir Elam. Right, I love that kid from the.
That was a better pick at that stage of the draft than Sauce Gardner was where the Jets were. I mean, let's not downplay you picking that pick that far down in the draft.
I don't want to reveal my sources, but Mr. Bean. No, you knew the position was a need. Right, you knew that, so you knew that that's probably the direction they were going. And there were about three guys that I liked out there. But when I looked at the physicality that he plays a position with, it just, to me, it spoke of McDermott, right?
Uh-huh.
It spoke of Leslie Frazier, and I was like, this kid is it, right? And I was surprised. Christian Benford having one heck of a season until he got hurt, right? Enough for such a low draft pick to even get the starting nod, especially when you drafted Elam number 1. The future's bright there for their secondary, but I think Elam really has developed. Dane Jackson, I think his practice status was he was out today and is questionable for the Cincinnati game. Maybe out for Cincinnati, I don't know yet. But if Elam comes in, I don't have any fear. Right, with him being in there.
Had a great game against Miami.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, great kid. Hey,
hold on, Vince. Wait. When we're talking about the first round, I got to get a little bit more credit here, though. Who called the Jets trading back up into the first round for the third first-round pick?
You did. He did.
I called that earlier. I said the Jets will trade back up and get a third first-round pick, and it happened. Now, the guy I wanted to get got taken before the trade happened in Lindenbaum from the center, because we needed a center, and he went to the Ravens. But I can't complain with Jermaine Johnson II out of Florida State. So
Russell, what we're trying to tell you is don't worry about Kuiper, don't worry about Lenardi, don't worry about any of those guys. When you want to start getting to the facts, when you want to know what's going on in the draft, it's OWSports.net. We got you.
Hey, I'm tuning in to you, man. I love what I'm hearing right now, man. I tell you what, you talk about the defensive backs, man. I think they'll come up big. But I think going against Miami last weekend, going against those really two great receivers, I think it prepares them for what they're going against this weekend. But when you're playing in the playoff game and you're playing against Cincinnati and you got two of the best young players playing, there's no motivational speech. You don't have to get the Buffalo Bills ready for this football game. They're going to be ready to play, and I'm just really excited. I'm looking forward to it. And for me, it's go Bills, man.
All right. And one last thing, you had mentioned the American Heart Association. Anything you want to speak on that one?
Well, it's something that's really dear to my heart, the American Heart Association. My father received a heart transplant over 10 years ago. I think it's 11 years ago now. Unfortunately for him, he passed away a couple of years ago from COVID, but he was doing great. He was doing tremendous. He was doing things that he hadn't done since he had gotten ill. I mean, he was doing everything. He didn't have any limits. And the doctor told me when he received his heart transplant, he said, when it's time for him to pass away, it won't be from this heart. It'll be from something else. And unfortunately from COVID, but it's really something that's dear to me. And also my daughter, when she was born, the hole in her heart wasn't closing up. Didn't really know how that was going to be. It finally closed and she was cleared, to do activities. I think it's probably around 2 or 3 that said she's fine. So that's something that's really dear to me. So you'll see on my platforms, you'll see me doing some things with the American Heart Association. It's big for me. So like I said before, just tune in to my YouTube channel at Russell Copeland 4350. Also, you'll see me on Facebook. And I'm just like you. I've never really got into a whole lot of Facebook and things such as that. But right now, I'm really getting into it. So just tune in to Russell Copeland YouTube 4350. Some of my Facebook is at Russell Copeland. Send me a friend request and I'll accept it, but I'll have a lot of these things when it comes to the American Heart Association. It'll be on there.
Sounds good. Well, listen, I really do appreciate you taking the time. We love having you on. You're more than welcome to come back anytime. If you want to chop it up, we can go at it, especially with the draft and maybe a road trip may be in store in February. I know I'm going back. Love to see you up there if that were to actually happen.
Hey, man, I guess, I've already got some reservations regardless, man. Hey, the NFLPA does a great job, so we know who's going to be playing. It'll be the Buffalo Bills and whoever comes from the NFC. I'm speaking it into existence. The Buffalo Bills, they're on a team of destination. I think the Buffalo Bills go to the Super Bowl, and I picked them before the season started to represent the AFC, and go Bills.
There you go. That's a perfect way to end it. Go Bills. Russell, thank you. Again, we really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Stevie D,
that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Thank you, Russell, for taking the time away to hang with us and take time away from your family to hang with us and chop it up, like Vince said. And that was awesome. I appreciate all those insights. So thank you.
Hey, Terry. Yeah, it's funny. It allowed me to kind of go back in the Wayback Machine, right? And, hearing him talk about whether it be the offensive or defensive players, and that's always good, right? You hear about, like he was talking about the DBs and Nate Odom's great defensive back. And, he's talking about J.D. Williams and the speed that he had. And I remember when they drafted him, right, and the expectations there. And then he talked about Thomas Smith. Right, Thomas Smith was one heck of a defensive back. He was one heck of a corner, right? Big, long, lanky, and as he talks about those guys, maybe some of the gray starts to fade away a little bit. Now it came back out, but in my mind it faded away because now all of a sudden I'm a 20-something-year-old kid, still part of the early days of Bills Mafia and just living, eating, sleeping Buffalo Bills, and then plus. I had the opportunity when, working for the radio station, doing those interviews, talking to these guys, meeting these guys, right? And it just all went back. So appreciative, love to hear what he said as he ended it, go Bills, his expectations, right? He's got his reservations in there. Me on the other side, Stevie D, maybe I should be more like Russell, but I kind of don't want to put the cart before the horse yet, right?
Look, the real, in my view, I mean, the 49ers are become a strong team, right? They really turned it around and they found something in Brock Purdy to kind of elevate them. But when you think about the gauntlet in the AFC, right, those 3 top teams, I mean, the loser of your game, right, that's a very good team that's going home, right? And then if Kansas City wins their game, I mean, that's going to be a heck of a battle for the AFC Championship. By the time you get to the exhibition game, whatever team goes, you're battle tested against the best, because I still think the class of the NFL is in the AFC. And just like they would say back in the day, the NFC Championship game, they had some battles back then, really good battles between the 49ers and Cowboys and things in the AFC Championship. Now that, you were talking about that pendulum, it's a beast in the AFC. And so, this weekend, I'm looking forward to your game very much. I'm not so much of the Chiefs Jaguars game, but your game, you guys got the number one, right? You got the number one play callers this week. So
yeah,
it's going to be a battle.
What's interesting when you look at Super Wildcard Weekend, right? And again, we started the show talking about this. You had the odds makers that had Buffalo at a 13.5 point favorite, right? And I think in their mind, this is the whole analytics thing that is just bugs me, right? In their mind, they said, okay, well, they're playing with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. Okay, Armstead, we don't know if he's going to play. Okay, so-and-so is going to be hurt. Okay, all of this. And at the end of the day, they say, here's the number. We're setting the line at 13.5, right? But just like you and I talked about, for that game, as well as with the Cincinnati-Baltimore game, what they failed to take into account is the rivalry, the division rivalry, right? These are two teams that have already played each other twice this year, right? Two teams that don't like each other because they're in the same division, right? Same as I don't like the Jets, right? I don't like the Patriots. The Ravens and the Bengals don't like them. They don't like the Browns. They don't like – it's these rivalries, right? This is that intangible that they can never quantify, but yet they want to put up a number, right? These games were destined to be close. They were destined to be close.
Yeah, honestly, I thought you guys were going to blow them out. And it wasn't more of a Skylar Thompson thing. I just thought you guys were primed to lay a butt whipping, right? And that butt whipping would have happened.
They know you, right? They know what worked in game one, and they know what didn't work. They know
Miami. I just can't stand Miami. I was hoping for that butt whipping.
Well, I had that. Now, interestingly enough, right? I remember the Raider victory when we won 51-3. But again, look at that. You may watch film, but you don't have that true film of what your players can do against their players, and that was a blowout. But anyways, the one thing that I said was we're now in the tournament. It doesn't matter how pretty, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter how ugly. It is win and advance, right? Lose and go home. If you get a 1-point victory, I'm happy, right? Elated. If you get a 30-point victory, I'm happy. I'm elated. The biggest thing, and I say it every time, I said it last podcast, be healthy, right? Because when you win and you move on, you don't want it to come at a price, right? You don't want to have to reshuffle that deck because all these players got hurt. And Gerald saying, if we win, I want to hear Vince call it it'll still be an exhibition game. It's still
Gerald. You know what, Gerald? I so appreciate that question because you're opening the door. So I appreciate you opening that door. Because the question is, if the Buffalo Bills would have won one of those four, would you have called it the exhibition game?
I would call it the big game. If you
had the silver trophy in the case one time in the 90s, you wouldn't be calling it the exhibition game.
It's still an exhibition game. It really is. Even Russell talked about it, but it is.
Yes, he did describe everything that goes on in the Super Bowl and how it's very different from other games and leading up to the Super Bowl, right?
It is. And that's
I don't know, Gerald. I don't know, Gerald. It's just me. I'm thinking, what do you think, Gerald? Yes or no? Come on, right back. Yes or no? Would he call it the Super Bowl if they would have won one in the 90s? Now, you got to put up Gerald's answer. You got to put it up.
I will, but I wouldn't just because of the stance that I take with it. It is, right? It's too much hoopla. Doesn't matter how many of those Lombardi trophies that you have, right? I still call it the Lombardi trophy, right? You don't hear me calling it something by another name, but the event is something totally different. it's an event.
I know Gerald put up an answer, and you're just not showing it.
He just put up.
Thank you, Gerald. Thank you.
Yeah, you're just doing that for clickbait, Gerald. Somehow, you've sold me out. You've sold me out there, and now for that, and we do quarter zips. We don't do t-shirts. But anyways, when we go back to that, the one thing that you want out of all of it is to be healthy, right? If you're going to advance, you want to be healthy, and I don't care how pretty it is, CBD. I don't care.
Look, can things get cleaned up? Sure, they're going to clean that up in practice, right?
Sure.
A catch here or there, whatever would happen, certain reads or something that happened, or a miscommunication between a player. That get cleaned up on tape and in practice and all that, right? It's like you said, all you care is you get the win to move on, right? It doesn't matter. You don't get style points by beating a team by 30, right? It's just go on because every game is unique. Each opponent is different from the previous one. Your game plans are totally different than it would be from the previous week. So it's all thrown out and you're starting again. The biggest thing that I would say from a coach's perspective, you don't want to be out game planned by the other team, right? So it's all that. And that's why some of the folks that come out were super critical. That doesn't mean a hill of beans because you got the win and you move on.
So what I want to do here, CBD, is I don't want us to rush past it, but let's just real quick. You had the Jacksonville comeback, right? I want to talk about the Jacksonville comeback because not what Jacksonville did, but what the Chargers didn't do, right? And starting with after the game, they haven't fired Brandon Staley, right?
No,
they fired the offensive coordinator, Lenardi, for no reason.
Yeah, so Lombardi, of course, the Italian gets it. I mean, come on, really?
Yeah.
And what's up with that? And so Lombardi and I believe the quarterback coach got canned, right? And
now, let me ask you. Hold on, let me ask you a question. The offense played well. Yeah, the offense played well all season. Who's in charge of the defense, Stevie D?
They said. Did you hear the reason what the Chargers organization said? They said they let him go because he lacked Lombardi lacked halftime adjustments and in-game adjustments.
What did you have to adjust to?
I'm just saying you're up 27-0. The offense put up 27. You scored 27 points in the league, and you're up 27. You're expected to win that game. You put up
unless. Unless they're blaming Lombardi for throwing the ball too much in the second half. Because I think
they did talk about again, but this is one particular game, right? Yeah, when you think about it, when you have Austin Eckler and he walks out of the game with 13 carries, there's something wrong with that, right? It's Austin Eckler, right? Why is he only getting 13 carries? So that was talked about in the post game, like, more carries just in general. Even if you don't want to use Eckler for 25 carries, you still have other backs in your stable. And why aren't you chewing clock that way? Because at the end of the day, when you're up 27-0, it's chewing clock. It's chewing clock.
Why isn't the head coach being held accountable for watching this go within the third quarter and not turning to his OC or looking up at the booth and saying, "Yo, start running the ball. You have the headset on. You get in there and you say, we have got to just ground out this clock. Let's keep running the ball. Why are you throwing it?"
Right. And that's why you're getting rid of the offensive coordinator for when a coach has the veto power on any play. And he can say, look, Joe, I appreciate it, but right now it's all about clock. I want to get our guys out healthy. Just let's chew the clock. Let's chew it. Chew it, right? But look, I'm not a big Brandon Staley fan. I wasn't a fan of him last year when he blew the opportunity. It was just poor coaching. And
last year, the Kansas City game. Or hold on. The Kansas City games, right?
Right. And then how about the Raider game?
The Raider game. There you go. There's another one.
Your playoff live is on there, and what are you doing?
Yep.
Why would you give the Raiders life? Hello,
Yep.
right? And so, what's the old saying? You can't fix stupid, and I don't know if you can fix it, right? And so we talked about Anthony Lynn being dismissed from at that time, I think it was still San Diego. I don't even know, but from the Chargers, he was let go, and they said clock management and things. I don't know what the replacement coach is doing, but I can tell you one thing: you got a guy in Sean Payton hanging out that's probably would love an opportunity to work with that offensive unit in with the Chargers.
Yeah.
Now, it's no guarantee you fire Staley and get Sean Payton right now, but I just look at Brendan Staley and I said, man, you got to go. You got a team that's ready to take off right now, and you're wasting time. You're burning daylight with this guy as a coach. That's how I feel.
So let me move to the next one, Stevie D.
Yep.
Bengals Ravens. Bengals win a squeaker. We already talked about it. Division games are tough, right? You had Skylar Thompson for the Dolphins, third stringer. Now you actually had the second stringer in Huntley come in for the Ravens. I wasn't surprised at the outcome. I'm just surprised at how it got to the outcome, right? Go ahead. You're good.
I don't know what Greg Roman was thinking with that call with Huntley at the 1.5, 2 yard line.
Well, hold on.
Was that an audible check into that play?
Report is he was not told to go up and over like that, but he was told to go submerge and go down. That was the play call. I don't know. Maybe he did not see like linebackers in those A gaps, and he figured he could just, because he's tall and lanky. Maybe that's
far, man. That's 6 feet. Like,
yeah,
you're not at the half-inch line. I mean, you're 6 feet, and you still got to get up, and you're 6 feet away. And I mean, I just saw the play. I was this when I was watching it. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I could not believe what I was watching.
J.K. Dobbins was not happy. J.K. Dobbins was not happy with the outcome. J.K. Dobbins.
Somebody called it. What is worse, that play or the Seattle Patriot play in the Super Bowl with Russell checking?
Yeah.
I think he checked to a pass play and checking out of the run with Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn should have gotten the ball 4 straight times until he scored.
Yeah, yes, he should have.
But you should never been throwing the ball in that scenario.
Yeah,
and there, I agree with that analogy of why wasn't J from that point of the field? Why wasn't it going to JK?
Or go to Edwards. Edwards is your big back. You just and now the way that they've allowed the play calling for this scrum push, which I can't stand, that's an automatic 2 yards. Right, you get Andrews coming right behind you. You snap it, and he just gives you a shove in the back. Right, readjust that.
As long as you're not grabbing a player, you can push. I think the rule is. I thought I heard this in one of the games. You can't physically grab like the jersey and pull. You can do anything from the back and push, but if you grab me by the front of my jersey and start pulling me, you can't do that. That's against.
I saw that this weekend, and it wasn't called.
You saw the pull?
I saw a pull. I'm not going to disclose because I don't want to jeopardize anything in this week's game. But I saw a certain team that was pulling, and I was thinking, because you had told me this before, that you can push but you can't pull, and I'm thinking, oh no, and then they didn't call it. I was like, okay, we'll leave well enough alone.
At the end of the day, and I know we got to move on to the next game, is you got to just remove it. You got to remove it. It never gets called. It never gets called anyway, so just remove it from the rule book. It's just silly.
So I don't want to gloss over, but I think we are. The 49ers Seahawks game, it was a close game, but then Bosa causes the turnover, and then the game it was over, right? I don't really think – and again, this was another intra-division game in the wild card weekend, and it was close. It really was close with the Seahawks having an opportunity, and then it just got away from them. And when it went down quick. So I kind of go past that one because there is a game that I know that you had a little interest in, right? A little family interest. and that was the Giants and the Vikings. Not to mention you haven't been a big fan of the Vikings all year. They pretty much showed why you weren't a fan of the Vikings.
My dad's a Giant fan, so secretly, just like I was happy for you and your team, winning and moving on. I was happy for my dad and his team to move on. I just think the Vikings overall were an overrated team as a whole. Yeah, they won 13 games, but they got to be the softest 13-game win team I've ever seen. And to have that home game in that environment and allow the New York Giants a total of 505 total yards in your house in the playoff game is inexcusable. And how Ed Donatel still has a job as a defensive coordinator for the Vikings. He stayed in cover 2 and he bled all the way with cover 2 all game long. He never came out of it. And the Giants said, they probably sit back like, okay, if this is what you're going to do, we're just going to keep doing our thing. And he just right down the field. And, the Giants receivers took a lot of flack because they don't line up necessarily to the Vikings. And they bowled out the New York Giants receivers, right? Slayton had an awful drop. I felt bad for him there late in the game. It didn't come back to bite him in the butt, but Hodgkins had a great game for the Giants. I think he had 8 for 105 after being called out by the NFL Network. The NFL Network called out the Giants receiving corps, and Hodgkins saw it, and he tweeted back at it and said, hey, right? And then right after the game, he tweeted the NFL Network right after the game and said, take that, NFL Network. So good for him.
Every game that he plays and throws up numbers, it just hurts. It just hurts. He was a Bill. He was on. So when you looked at our receiving core, right? He was like that number 4, number 5 guy, and they were trying to find a place. And for whatever reason, Jamison Crowder, Jake Kumaro, for whatever reason, he wasn't able to get past those two. And so then he became one of those guys that went on the practice squad that you would hope you could stash on the practice squad. Well, you're not stashing anybody on the practice squad when Schoen and Dable are over there just looking to pillage your entire roster. And sure enough, that's what happened. Dable says, and Schoen say, we're going to sign you with the Giants. And this kid is balling out. I'm happy for him. I really am. I liked it and was hoping that I would be able to see that with Buffalo. But, he's showing, he is definitely a good talent and up and coming.
And the last point is I don't know what goes through a quarterback's mind, but as a fan, it's 4th and 8. How in the world do you throw a 3-yard pass to TJ Hawkinson when it's 4th and 8? Your season is on the line, and you throw the ball 5 yards before the line. Now, okay, TJ Hawkinson, why are you doing a 3-yard crosser when you need 8 yards? You're not fast enough to outrun the DB on the field, right? They're going to pick out your legs on that play, and you're done. So partially, I got to put a little bit on him to say, man, I shouldn't be running a 3-yard crosser. Maybe I should do a 7-yard cross and hope that I can stretch out for that extra 1 yard. But Kirk Cousins, who was not under crazy pressure where he was forced to throw it to TJ, I don't know how you make that throw.
He's not a good quarterback.
In double coverage to Jefferson, incomplete, then throw a 3-yard pass play.
He's not a good quarterback. We have said this in the past. He has been a benefactor of one of these wild gunslingers at times, right? So he'll throw it up and he'll chuck it down to Thielen and to Jefferson, right? He'll get these gaudy numbers. But when it comes to crunch time, he has not been good. Now, yeah, they stacked some wins with some last-minute comebacks. I'll give you that, right? I think that was more of an anomaly because we have seen over the previous seasons who you really are. And this was just an anomaly. And the truth came out right here in this game. There's no way There's no way any of the greats, to your point, would have thrown a 3-yard pass. You have a better shot at getting defensive pass interference or getting a defensive holding call throwing it down the field than you did of throwing 3 yards and expecting, like you said, a tight end to break a tackle and then scamper for 5 more yards. The bad quarterback.
The Buffalo game. Jefferson on the double team. Amazing coverage on Jefferson. On, what was it, 4th and 16 or 4th and 19?
Yeah.
The guy makes one of the most impossible catches. How he holds on to that ball with that guy there and come down. So you know Jefferson can make the most outrageous catches, and you throw a 3-yard play.
Yep.
Your best weapon you don't go to. It's like in a basketball game when the game is on the line. You know, you got Jordan on the ball's going to Jordan. He's going to put the last shot, right? The superstars, you got to put the ball in the hands of the superstars to let them. That's why they're a superstar. Jefferson is the superstar. Why isn't the ball going to him? Even in double coverage. I can live with myself and say, well, hey, I gave it to Jefferson. I get a shot. We hit him 20 yards downfield.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen. Maybe I was a tick high or the DB made whatever the case may be. But a 3-yard pass, dude, you're getting murdered. And he should be. He should be getting crucified. And if I'm O'Connell, I'm sorry, you may not kill the quarterback in public, but I'm going to the gym and say, can you get me an effing quarterback out here that understands down and distance, season on the line, right? We're talking about football IQ, awareness, right? We talk about awareness all the time, right? Are you playing the game like this? Are you playing the game like this, right? Peripheral vision. He's got zero, none of that.
He's got blinders on. He's got blinders. So, Stevie D, we go to our last game of the wild card weekend +1, right? And this is the +1 version. Was I smiling during the game? I was smiling. I'm not a Cowboys fan, right? But I do think that Dak got a lot of unfair criticism. They had a bad Washington game, week 17, bad game, right? But it really didn't matter, right, as far as seeding and standing. Bad game. I give you that. Dak was hurt, and Dak has had, some struggles coming back, but the team plays better with Dak. But you go to the other side of the field. I like Todd Bowles, right? But I like Todd Bowles as a defensive coordinator.
Todd Bowles, former Jet coach, right? I like Todd Bowles. I thought he got a raw deal towards the end. I thought the Jets got really cheap, right, in paying players and going things on the cheap. And I thought he got a raw deal out the door. So to watch Todd Bowles struggle in Tampa, it hurts because I like the man. I respect him. I always respected his answers. But see,
Tampa, Tampa did it again. They did it again. What was Britney's song? Oops, I did it again. They did it again, right? Because they did it with Tony Dungy, right? And then they did it again with Bruce Arians. This time a little different, right? Because for Bruce Arians, you can tell me 1,000,001 reasons what they are telling you as to why Arians is in a different position. But Arians is in a different position because they wanted to bring back Brady. And Brady had publicly shown that he had conflict with Arians. Brady retires, right? And they're like, oh, what are we going to do, right? We're going to go to Blaine Gabbert. We're going to go to Kyle Trask. What are we going to do? Hey, Tom, can we get you back? Yeah, I'll come back, but I don't want that guy over there. Done. Right? But now you got all these coaches. It's after the carousel, right? Because everything had happened. And so then they made the arrangement to move Arians into this special projects type position, still getting paid. They had to look at their coaching staff. You put Todd Bowles into a situation that's a tough one. You still have Byron Leftwich. But what you did was you brought back a feeble geriatric Tom Brady. You want to run around talking about he's the GOAT. He is not the GOAT, right? He may have been good back then, right? But he is not leaving as a champion, right? He's not leaving as the GOAT. And here, I will tell you exactly where you can tell that he is mentally not into it, right? Nor is he physically into it. If you watch that game, Micah Parsons was eating, right? What do they do? I want to eat. Micah Parsons was eating up that offensive line for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But Brady didn't want to get hit by Micah Parsons. Brady didn't want to get hit by Lawrence, right? And so as that rush, that's exactly right. As that rush was coming, before it even got that step and a half, Brady is throwing the ball. Doesn't matter where the ball's going. And most of the time the ball was going short because the receiver in this route was supposed to go 7 yards, but Brady, to avoid the hit, was throwing the ball at the 5 yards. So now the receiver's turning around and there's no ball there, right? The ball's sailing out of bounds because you're scared. And when you're scared, the reason why you're scared is because you know that you're 45 years old. Because you know that your body doesn't want to take that same beating that it took when you were 23, 24, and 25. And I get it. But don't come across as, you're the Messiah and you're the chosen one and you're doing all of this. You had a good team. You had a good run. But that was over. And now what you have done is you've totally turned over this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Because now what are they going to do at quarterback, right? Are they going after Derek Carr? Are they going to go after Jimmy Garoppolo? Are they going to try to let Kyle Trask play, who hasn't seen a down yet, right? You're in a meaningless game, and you demand to play, but you don't let Kyle Trask, your future successor, get on the field, right? This all goes back to I can't stand TB12. I don't like the arrogance. I don't like the way that, there's the supposed cheating. Right. And I don't like how everybody raises him up like he's from the Lion King. Right. He's the chosen one. He's not the chosen one. You've just elected to hitch onto him. And so, when I watch that, I really, in as much as I don't like the Dallas Cowboys either. Right. I want to see Jerry Jones lose. But for that one, oh, yeah, I wanted to see Brady go out. I wanted to see him go out hanging his head. And that's exactly
you made some really good points there on during the game, right? With Micah and Lawrence, right? If everybody has him going to the Raiders, right? Like he's going somewhere else. There's another team he's going to play for. He's not retiring. But that statement is actually very powerful because what are you going to do when you go up against teams that have a pass rush and he's dumping the ball? You're basically conceding that game. I knew in that first quarter they were done because he was bailing out on his throws. So, I mean, it was really bad. And when you think about the passes that he made, other than that one really pass there, the streak on the left side to Mike Evans, it was really checkdowns. And even that was poorly run checkdowns, poorly thrown balls and everything because he punked out. And you can't play this game that way. You can't play it. And to me, you're almost going to start your feelings aside, right? My feelings are very similar to your feelings on Tom Brady. Your legacy, this is what you're leaving behind is these last couple of years of football. And if you're afraid to get hit, you should be playing the game. All you're doing, it's the selfishness, right?
It is.
It's the selfishness of him, right? And you're giving, some players may be energized to play for Tom Brady, right? Do you have that? And then all of a sudden you get in your game like, the hell is this? Right?
They used to be.
Well, I do think that is changing in Tampa. I felt like part of it was the players gave up. Like when I was watching that game, I'm like, I feel like the players don't want to play for Tom Brady on the offensive side of the ball, right? I just didn't. The lack of energy. I think his antics of breaking tablets on the sidelines and chewing people out. It's funny. Josh Allen has a bad game and he gets up. He's like, I play like crap. I mean, he used other words. I play like crap, right? Tom Brady never steps up and says, I play like crap. It was more of, we just didn't get it done offensively and deflecting instead of just taking the ownership when you stunk, right? You gave up on the plays, not the players running the routes. You bailed and couldn't deliver the ball, as Russell would say, to the spot, because you got the rush and you weren't willing to hang in there for that quarter of a second or half a second so the guy can get out of the break and you can throw it to the spot and he can get there and you bailed out. And so it's very selfish football by Tom Brady. But I do think he's going to continue on, and I don't see him having any better success with the Raiders. I just don't see it. He may have some weapons out there, but
he's got 300+ million waiting for him. He's hanging on because he wants to own every single record in the record book. That's the only reason why you're hanging on. It's not money, because there's money waiting from you from Fox Sports, right? It's sitting right there. It's time for you to go. So
I mean, you've seen it with players, right? They hang on that 1 year, and now he's doing it. Look, was his numbers awful this year? If you look at his numbers and you take his name away and you put up how many yards he threw in the touchdowns and interceptions, there's nothing that says, man, that's an awful quarterback, right? But when you get into those games against elite teams, he's not there anymore.
no.
He can beat the subpar teams, right? You can see they were 8-9. They were not a good football team. You were 8-9. And then, boom, you get into the playoffs, you got wrecked. You got wrecked. That score was a lot worse. If they had a kick an extra point, they probably would put up a 50 burger there, right? I gotta be honest with you, I've never seen that before in my life. You missed 4 extra points. I never seen that.
Somebody said it and I agree. That this was the golfing syndrome being played out on the football field, right? Because as a golfer, you get up, you're addressing the ball, you think you're lined up good, right? You're taking your time as you address it. You go ahead, you have a good takeaway, and you come through. And as you come through, the club face may be open, and all of a sudden you're watching the ball kind of just curve off. You're like, oh, I knew I hit that. I thought I hit that pure. Of course, as the amateur golfers that we are, right? You drop another one, right? And you go and you hit the same thing, right? And it goes over there, and you're just like, what am I doing wrong, right? You get to the next hole. What do? You overcompensate, right? And so then as you hit the ball, instead of drifting off to the right, now it goes to the left, right? And you're like, what am I doing? Then you hit the next one, it goes off to the right. And you can't dial it in, right? That's exactly what happened to him. And thankfully, right, he was able to get that one to go in. And he was able to hit it down and hit it pure. You see it, it's in the head. It is strictly in the head. The good thing is that something like that, you get away, and he's had a great season, right? You just clear your head and you go back to rinse and repeat, and he'll be fine. I really do think he'll be fine. So Jay chimes in, the NFL doesn't need TB12. It's time for the new generation of quarterbacks. All right, I don't disagree. But that comes from a Buccaneer fan. He'll tell you he's an Eagle fan, but that comes from a Buccaneer fan, right? He's a little salty, and that salt is because you got throttled 31-14, and really it was worse than that. So Stevie D, we're going a little long. Obviously, again, thank you to Russell Copeland for coming on and just being able to talk about a lot of different things. I do want us to just spend a few moments just about this Buffalo-Cincinnati matchup, right? One of the things that we had talked about offline, the week 17 game between Buffalo and Cincinnati, by not playing that game, it actually – well, we don't know what would have happened. Let's put it like that. You don't know. The game was called 5 minutes 5 minutes ago in the first quarter. So there really wasn't, even though the score was 7-3, there wasn't a definitive advantage for either side, right? But the winner of that, well, it's hard to say. I can't say that, right? Because if Buffalo wins, Buffalo's playing Jacksonville this week, right? But if Cincinnati had won that game, this would have been the matchup, but it would have been a rematch in Cincinnati, and they would have had home field advantage there, right? By not playing that game and not knowing that outcome, then this game is, with Buffalo being the higher seed, this game will be played at Highmark Stadium, which gives a decisive advantage to the Buffalo Bills. Just like we talked again with Russell, the potential, just the mere potential. And think about this, right? The potential of Damar Hamlin coming and being on site at that game. Insane, right? The whole recovery aspect. And then you're coming back against the team that it happened with. That's the one that just blows my mind. Like, oh, can you imagine? But I in the back of my mind, I was thinking that this is going to be the game, right? And I think that with this being the game, that there would be acknowledgement to Zach Taylor and to T. Higgins, right? And their friends, and certainly to let them know, hey, I'm here, bro. And then come across the other side of the field, and you got 52 guys just waiting to show you love and dap you up and everything else. I could just see that just being just absolutely amazing. That type of situation, the momentum rush, it lasts for about 5 minutes, right? 7 minutes of the game. And then everything gets to normal, and then they clash. It's going to be a tough matchup for both sides, right? No matter how you want to look at it. This is not divisional tough, but this is good team tough, right? This is where you got two good teams. Buffalo, as I mentioned earlier, Dane Jackson and Jordan Poyer, both questionable, which is a big factor for our secondary. You do have Kyer Elam stepping in, so that's going to be a good thing. But Poyer, he's just that leader, right? You have to have those leaders. And right now it seems like Edmonds and Milano have been stepping up in that leadership role. You don't have Von Miller, who obviously is gone for the season, so you don't have him as that leader. Jordan Poyer, we really need him back there. It looks like you're going to say something. Go ahead, CBD.
The Von Miller injury, when it happened in the time of the year, was a blessing if he was going to get hurt, because you've learned to play without him.
Yeah.
If that injury happened late in the year and then you're trying to scramble.
Yeah.
That to me, it hurts not having Von Miller altogether. Don't get me wrong, but losing him in week 8, whatever week it was, rather than losing him in week 17, big difference. And you've learned to adjust without Von Miller. To the
We've also learned to see that our pass rush is not as good as we thought it was post Von Miller, right? The guys do get there, but we're blitzing more, right? I told you in training camp that now with Von Miller, we don't have to blitz. We're rushing 4 and dropping 7. I dare you to throw into that 7. Well, now we're blitzing, right? So now we got 5 coming, right? And now you got 6. Now there's gaps, right? And we've been exposed in some of those gaps, right? You just have to make sure you get home. I have seen from better play from Boogie Basham. AJ Epinesa have not seen as much from him. Rousseau seems to have kind of tapered down a little bit, right? I'm hoping that these guys kind of regain it, but there are certain guys that are still bringing it, and that's a good thing. And Matt Milano is just a flat out stud. Can we say that one?
I think the crowd energy in this game, crowd energy. We all know this. This is not players feed off that energy, right?
Yeah.
And if that energy is going all game long, I can see your front four having a really good game, because the players will feed off of that energy, and it's going to want to move through that line good. When you play
against that energy is going to be high as long as it's close or we're winning.
And when I look at what happened in against the Miami, all of a sudden when the tide was turning, man, it got really quiet, and then the players don't feed off of that home energy, and Miami negated that home field advantage at that point.
I think we were confused. I know I was confused. What in the world is going on?
Right. But I just think if that crowd is going and it's continuing to go because the game is going in your favor in that fashion, even if it's close, but you guys are winning and it's that type of game, I think Rousseau is Phillips playing. Is he back?
Don't know yet. Don't know yet. And that's a key player on that line. And he wanted to play against his old team, but that's a big one. We'll see. It's midweek. I'd like to see probably wait for that Friday injury report. That's really going to be the one to tell you, who's in and who's out. But
and Micah Hyde, is he if you make it to the exhibition game, is that eligible? Because I know he's off the IR, but there's no sighting of him.
So I was hoping the sighting is that he's at practice. He's practicing. So that's the good thing, right? I was hoping for this week, but I don't think I'm going to get my wish. That's okay. There is a distinct possibility for next week. If there is a next week, there's a distinct possibility for that. And I can tell you without a doubt that if you go to – I'll start to change it from exhibition to if you go to the big game, that I can tell you without a doubt he'll be out there. He'll be out there. So this is going to be a good game, right? Joe Burrow, I'm a Burrow fan. I'm not going to lie. Because he's just so smooth and so cool, right? He's a bad boy, and I'm a Jamar Chase. And dare I make an early comparison, not saying that they're going to end up with those same careers. Dare I say they could become another Montana and Rice. Because Burrow is just that smooth of a passer, right? And Jamar Chase can run every route on that tree.
The problem isn't in the owner fashion of only the Cincinnati Bengals owner could do in a playoff run, because that owner is one of the more confusing owners in sports. He comes out and they ask the question about extending Joe Burrow, and he says, yes, he's eligible for extension, but it's hard to keep all the players in the money, and if you give them all the money, then I don't have money to pay the other players. Dude, you're in a playoff run. Why would you say that to piss off the team and Joe Burrow or the receiving corps? It's mind-blowing to me that the owner would even bring that up and have that conversation. Sorry.
Let me tell you, if somehow Joe Burrow did not end up a Cincinnati Bengal when it came time for that contract to be restructured, there would be no more Cincinnati Bengals. They are so in love with Joe Burrow. They know it. More than Ken Anderson, more than Boomer Esiason, more than
more talented those two.
What? Absolutely.
Than those two.
I mean, they got their quarterback. You cannot let him go. You cannot let Jamar Chase go. Right? Those two are tied to the hip. You skipped over drafting an offensive lineman just so that you can reunite the college teammates. That's locked in.
If they get a Super Bowl, then they could let one of them go because they completed the mission. No. Because honestly, where do you go with it? Is Joe Burrow going to be the first $60, $70 million quarterback, and Jamar Chase going to be the first $40, $45 million receiver?
Sure will. Look to your
salary cap gets pumped up a lot, man.
Look to your neighbors to the west and see what happened in Green Bay. Yeah, they sure will. I will keep my quarterback and my wide receiver and figure it out from there.
But we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals and Brown as the owner, who's the cheapest owner. Well, there's some cheap owners, but man, he's up there, right? He's in the top 3. He's in the Mount Rushmore as cheap owners.
He is.
I don't know if he'll pony up the money. I just don't. He's got a dollar value in his head. He's not willing to budge. It's killed the whole franchise. It's killed Carson Palmer. He had to get out of there.
Yeah. Right? That is very true.
I feel for Bengal fans when it comes to that owner. Yeah.
So Stevie D, you know I don't do picks, right? I don't do the picks. But I feel confident like I did last game. I feel confident. I feel confident in this team against anybody, right? I just be, that's not being a fanboy. That's just looking at this team. They have the weapons. They have the ability to get it done. As long as Dorsey calls a good game, as long as Josh plays the way that Josh can play, As long as the defense does and Leslie Frazier puts those guys in the right position, they can't be stopped. And so I do feel as though, especially being at home, I feel very confident in this game. Again, I want to get out of it with no injuries, and let's hopefully be preparing to go to Atlanta, to the Dirty South, or which would be even better, have Travis or Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne come to Buffalo and come to the 716. That would be even better. But I think we're traveling to Atlanta.
Bringing the sun to Buffalo, baby.
Yeah, but
I don't know if I can pick this game. I think this is the matchup right now. I mean, this is as close as two teams can be. And I don't know if I can pick a winner of this game. All I can just say is I just hope Joe Mixon.
You can pick a winner.
Well,
you picked a winner.
I said at the beginning of the year where I thought Buffalo was going to be, so I can't back down on my pick from Buffalo. So I have Buffalo in the game. They were my preseason team.
Listen, we need to replicate exactly what happened last week, right?
Buffalo's going to win 45-13. All right, I'm calling it.
Replicate.
I'm telling you that right now. 45-13. There you go. Hey, how about Mrs. D? How about Mrs. D?
Oh, thank you for giving some love there, and I have to admit,
it's time. Wait a minute.
Now, normally, this segment is dedicated for. We have to get something off our chest, right? It's just really bothering you. Thank you for bringing this up, because game day, going through, just checking, make sure everything is aligned, right? Everything's going good. All of a sudden, this pops up. I see this picture in the Josh Allen jersey, and I was like, that just warmed my heart. I was like, look at this. And so I absolutely had to comment on it. Seeing Richard in that Josh Allen jersey. I wasn't sure. Now, I said temporary, which I'm okay with that, right? Beggars can't be choosers. So it wasn't a permanent profile picture change. But maybe on the low, I could slide over a Bills Mafia application to Richard to say, I'm looking at the facial expression, not going where I thought it was going to go. So maybe I'll pull that application back just so I can get the picture again this week.
Well, I think she said she was keeping it as long as Buffalo keeps winning.
She did. And I am ever so grateful that
that was not approved by me. I can just tell you that right now. So,
or half of the Kansas City population who she's friends with, because people are in uproar. What is that? Why is it's like easy? And she had to defend it. She had to defend it to you and to others that she's supporting New York State in the playoffs. And I was like, that's what's up. Well, the Giants play in New Jersey, right? You admit to that, right?
Serenity now.
So
I give her kudos for doing that, thinking of that. I have to give her the credit that way.
Yes, it was well received. Well, CBD, again, this has been a long one, but I enjoyed it. I really did spend a lot of good time here with Russell Copeland, and again, please, when you have the opportunity, check out what he's doing. Right, he's getting into the whole social media, the live streaming, the podcasting, and you can find him out on YouTube. Again, just do a search for Russell Copeland 4350, Russell Copeland 4350, and then as he mentioned, near and dear to his heart is the American Heart Association. So. Again, we're very thankful and, glad to have him on, and, especially as a guest. And, Russell, if you're still listening or you watch this, if you need any draft advice, we're here for you, right? We're here for you. free of charge. We like to do it, a little pro bono working, just get some things out there and listen to our insight. But, again, for everybody, you can check us out. We're on YouTube as well, OW Sports. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter. Look for OW Sports or one of our variations of the handles there. All right. For my co-host, Stevie D, I'm Vince. We'll talk to you soon.